Stella Kim yanks the microphone from my hands again, just like she did 3 years ago, but this time, I'm reborn with the power to make her pay. The Crystal Award trembles in my grip as I stand at the podium, the Rising Star Podcaster trophy catching the harsh stage lights. My acceptance speech dies in my throat as Stella's perfectly manicured fingers wrap around my microphone. Actually, she interrupts, her voice dripping with false sweetness, I need to set the record straight. The metallic taste of blood floods my mouth as I bite down on my tongue, fighting every instinct to snatch it back. The ballroom falls silent, 500 industry professionals watching our friendship shatter in real time. Maya's been stealing my content for months, Stella continues, pulling out her phone with theatrical precision. I have the evidence right here. My heart pounds against my ribs as she swipes through screenshots, voice memos, timestamps, all fabricated, all designed to devastate me. The audience leans forward, their earlier applause transforming into hungry whispers. These are our brainstorming sessions, she lies smoothly. You can clearly hear Maya taking my ideas and claiming them as her own. The conference room air grows thick with betrayal. I watch my career crumble as Stella plays audio clips. My voice, yes, but edited to make me sound like a thief. The crowd shifts, their admiration curdling into disgust. But I don't defend myself. I remain perfectly still, letting her destroy me in front of everyone who matters in our industry. Because somewhere deep in my chest, a cold certainty settles. This isn't how my story ends. Maya Chen, Stella concludes, is a fraud. The applause that should have been mine erupts for her instead. My knees buckle as the weight of public humiliation crashes over me. The stage lights blur into streaks of white as my vision tunnels. I collapse. The last thing I hear is Stella's fake concern. Oh my God, someone called 911. Maya, can you hear me? Darkness swallows me whole, but in that final moment, I swear on everything I've lost, this betrayal will never happen again. I jolt awake, gasping, my body trembling with the phantom pain of public disgrace. But something's wrong. The ceiling above me isn't the sterile white of a hospital room. It's the familiar water stain shaped like a butterfly that I stared at for 2 years in my old apartment. My old apartment. The one I moved out of 3 years ago. I bolt upright, my heart hammering as I scan the tiny studio space. The secondhand desk pushed against the window. The microphone setup I built with YouTube tutorials and desperation. The vision board covered in podcasting goals I thought were impossible. This isn't real. It can't be real. The familiar scent of jasmine tea drifts from my kitchenette. The same blend I used to drink every morning when I was nobody. When my podcast had 12 subscribers and dreams bigger than my talent. I stumble to the bathroom mirror and gasp. My reflection shows the face I wore 3 years ago. Younger, softer, still believing the world would be fair if I just worked hard enough. The stress lines around my eyes have vanished, the silver streaks in my hair are gone. I'm 25 again. My phone buzzes on the nightstand and my blood turns to ice when I see the date. March 15th, 2021. The day I first met Stella Kim at the struggling podcasters support group in a dingy community center basement. The day I sealed my own fate. But if I'm here, if this is real, then I have knowledge she doesn't. I remember every manipulation, every stolen idea, every calculated move she made to destroy me. This time, I won't be the naive girl who trusted too easily. I grab my laptop and start recording voice memos. Every detail I can remember about the next 3 years. Every guest she'll steal, every sponsor she'll poach, every moment she'll betray me. My fingers fly across the keyboard as I document dates, conversations, industry events. If the universe has given me a second chance, I'm going to use it to bury her. Keys jangle in my lock. My pulse spikes as I recognize the sound. Stella always made too much noise with her keychain. The one covered in designer charms she claimed were gifts from grateful listeners. She's early for our first collaboration meeting. But this time, I'm ready for her. The memory floods back as I watch Stella bounce through my door, all bright smiles and infectious energy. This was the moment I fell for her act, when she seemed like the answer to my prayers instead of the architect of my destruction. Maya, she squeals, dropping her expensive purse on my thrift store couch. I'm so excited about this partnership. I was 25 and desperate when we first met in that basement support group. My podcast, Whispered Truths, had been struggling for 8 months, barely breaking double-digit downloads despite my pouring everything into it. I'd shared my deepest fears with that circle of equally desperate creators, that maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I'd never break through the noise. Stella had approached me afterward, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the fluorescent lights. "Your content is incredible," she'd said, touching my arm with practiced intimacy. "But you need a partner. Someone who understands marketing, social media, the business side." The rough texture of our original contract paper scratches against my palm as I remember signing it in this very apartment. I'd been so grateful that someone believed in me, I barely read the terms. The 50-50 split seemed fair when I thought we'd build something together. "So tell me everything about Whispered Truths," Stella says now, settling cross-legged on my floor like we're having a sleepover. "I want to understand your vision completely." This is where it started. This is where I opened my heart and handed her the knife. In my first life, I'd spent 3 hours explaining my concept. Intimate conversations with everyday people about their secret struggles, their quiet triumphs, the truth behind their social media facades. I'd shared my interview techniques, my editing process, my dream guest list. Stella had listened with such focused attention, asking thoughtful questions, taking notes in her designer journal. I'd felt seen, understood, validated by someone who seemed more successful than me. "The concept is simple," I begin, but this time I'm watching her face carefully. "People share their authentic stories." "Mm-hmm," she nods, already reaching for her phone. "Mind if I record this? I want to make sure I capture all your brilliant ideas." There it is, the first manipulation. In my original timeline, I'd been flattered that she wanted to remember everything. Now I recognize it for what it was: evidence gathering. "Actually, let's keep this conversation just between us for now," I say casually. "I'm superstitious about sharing unfinished concepts." Her smile tightens, almost imperceptibly. "Of course, I totally understand." But I catch her sliding her phone closer anyway, the voice memo app probably already running in her purse. She asks about my editing software, my recording setup, my guest booking process. Each question sounds supportive, but I remember how she used every answer against me later. When she launched her own podcast 6 months into our partnership, she'd replicated my entire system and claimed she'd developed it independently. "This is going to be amazing," she gushes, but there's something calculating in her green eyes. "We're going to be the next big thing in podcasting." "We." That was her favorite word, until it came time to share credit. I smile and nod, playing the eager collaborator while mentally cataloging every lie. This time, I won't just document her betrayal. I'll orchestrate her downfall. "I can't wait to get started," I tell her, and for the first time in years, I mean it. 6 months pass, and this time, I'm the one pulling the strings. I channel my fury into cold calculation, every memory of humiliation transforming into a chess move. The satisfying click of my lawyer's pen echoes through his downtown office as we finalize the contracts. Unlike my naive younger self, I've learned that trust requires verification, preferably in triplicate. The silence clause is unusual, my attorney admits, adjusting his glasses, but perfectly legal. If she violates it, you'll have grounds for immediate contract termination and damages. I've spent months building Echoed Voices, my solo podcast that launched under a pseudonym, while Stella thought I was too busy with our partnership to pursue other projects. The content is different this time, deliberately avoiding the territory I know she'll try to steal. My phone buzzes with a text from Stella. "Coffee, I have the best idea for our next series." I know exactly what idea she means. In the original timeline, she'd presented my concept for interviewing trauma survivors as her own breakthrough innovation. She'd even scheduled the guests behind my back, claiming she was surprising me with her initiative. Not this time. I arrive at our usual cafe early, ordering her favorite oat milk latte and my own bitter black coffee. I've trained myself to associate sweetness with weakness. The morning crowd bustles around us, unaware they're witnessing the setup for someone's destruction. "Maya!" Stella slides into the booth across from me, her designer bag hitting the table with a soft thud. "You look amazing. That new skincare routine is really working." She always started with compliments before she stabbed me in the back. "Thanks. So what's this earth-shattering idea?" "Okay, so I was thinking, She leans forward conspiratorially. What if we did a series on people who've overcome major trauma, like really raw, emotional stories? I let her talk, watching her animated gestures as she describes my concept with the passion of someone who just discovered fire. She even uses the same phrases I'd used in our original brainstorming session. That's actually brilliant, I say, pulling out a formal looking document. I love it so much that I think we need to protect it legally. Her eyes narrow slightly. Protect it how? I've drawn up a partnership agreement specifically for this series. It includes creative protection clauses, exclusive content agreements, and some promotional restrictions to ensure neither of us can use these stories inappropriately. The document is 20 pages of legal jargon that essentially boils down to one thing. If Stella tries to steal credit or take the content elsewhere, she'll be bound by a silence clause that prevents her from discussing any aspect of the project. This seems a bit excessive, she says, flipping through the pages without really reading them. It's industry standard now, I lie smoothly. After that whole plagiarism scandal with the Peterson Podcast Network, everyone's being more careful. Greed flickers in her eyes. The Peterson scandal was real and lucrative. She's imagining the same kind of success, with her name in the spotlight. She signs without reading the fine print. I watch her pen move across the signature line and feel something cold settle in my chest. This time, when she tries to destroy me, she'll destroy herself instead. Partners, she says, extending her hand. Partners, I agree, shaking it firmly. But we both know that only one of us will be left standing. The bitter coffee burns my throat as I force myself to drink it during our weekly planning meeting. I've conditioned myself to associate this taste with focus, with the necessity of staying sharp around Stella's manipulations. It's been 6 months since she signed the contract, and I've been carefully feeding her false information like breadcrumbs leading to a cliff. Today's meeting is in my new office space. Nothing fancy, but a significant upgrade from my old apartment. Stella's eyes keep darting around, cataloging the improvements with barely concealed envy. So the Henderson interview is confirmed for Thursday, I tell her, sliding a fake guest list across the table. And I've got 3 more trauma survivors lined up for next month. None of these interviews exist. The real guests I've been booking are safely hidden in my private calendar, scheduled for my pseudonymous solo podcast, Anonymous Truths. While Stella thinks she's stealing my contacts, I'm building relationships with industry professionals she doesn't even know exist. Perfect, she says, making notes in her journal. I've been thinking we should expand the format. Maybe do some solo episodes where we each share our own trauma stories? I know where this is going. In the original timeline, she'd used my personal story about my father's abandonment to build sympathy for herself, claiming similar experiences she'd never actually had. That's really vulnerable territory, I say carefully. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of exposure? Oh, I've been through plenty, she waves dismissively. People need to see the real us, you know? It builds trust. Trust. The word tastes like ash coming from her mouth. My phone buzzes with an email notification, and I glance at the screen with practiced surprise. Oh, wow. What? The Henderson interview just got picked up by 3 major platforms. They want to discuss a syndication deal. This is also a lie, but I need her to believe our partnership is becoming valuable enough to steal. Stella's pupils dilate slightly, her tell when she's planning something. That's amazing. We should probably discuss updating our partnership terms, to reflect our growing success. Here it comes. The same pitch she used before, dressed up as protecting our interests while actually positioning herself to claim majority ownership. But I have my own surprise ready. Actually, I've been thinking the same thing, I say, pulling out another contract. I've had my lawyer draft an expansion agreement. It includes some exciting opportunities I've been developing. The document outlines my offer to bring Stella into a larger media company I'm supposedly launching. What she doesn't realize is that every clause is designed to bind her more tightly to restrictions, while making her feel like she's getting a promotion. Senior Creative Director, she reads aloud, her voice breathless with ambition. Maya, this is incredible. I know you've been working just as hard as me, I lie. You deserve recognition. She signs eagerly, not noticing the subsection that requires all her creative work to go through me for approval, or the one that extends her silence clause to cover any future projects. As her pen moves across the signature line, my phone rings. The caller ID shows a number I recognize from my previous life, the network executive who originally offered me the deal that Stella tried to steal. This time, they're calling right on schedule. Maya Chen, the voice says when I answer. This is David Park from Nexus Media Network. We need to talk. My heart pounds against my ribs as I walk into the Nexus Media boardroom, but this time it's with anticipation instead of terror. The cold marble conference table reflects the city lights 40 floors below, and I remember how intimidated I felt in this room during my first life. Now I own this moment. Miss Chen. David Park rises from his chair, extending a firm handshake. Thank you for coming in. We've been following your work closely. The other executives nod approvingly, and I catch fragments of their whispered conversations about my innovative approach and authentic voice. What they don't know is that they've been following my anonymous solo work, not the partnership content with Stella. I have to admit, I say, settling into the leather chair across from them, this call came as a surprise. Surprises are good in this business, David grins. We've been tracking the analytics on your recent content, and frankly, we're impressed. The engagement rates on your solo pieces are exceptional. My pulse spikes. They know about anonymous truths. Somehow, they've connected my pseudonymous podcast to my real identity, probably through digital fingerprinting or voice recognition software. I think there might be some confusion. The boardroom door bursts open, and Stella strides in wearing her most professional blazer and her brightest smile. Sorry, I'm late, she announces, pulling out the chair beside me. Traffic was absolutely insane. The room falls silent. David's eyebrows furrow as he glances between us. I'm sorry, he says slowly, but I don't believe Miss Kim was invited to this meeting. Oh, but we're partners, Stella laughs, settling into her seat anyway. Whatever you're offering Maya, you're offering both of us. We're a package deal. This is the moment that destroyed me in my first life, when Stella inserted herself into my opportunities and convinced executives that she was the real talent behind our success. But this time, I have a nuclear option. I reach into my briefcase and pull out the contract she signed, flipping to the highlighted section. Actually, Stella, I think you should read subsection 4.7 of our partnership agreement. Her face pales as she scans the text, her confident smile wavering. This is our creative director's silence clause, I explained to the confused executives. Miss Kim agreed that in situations involving potential network partnerships, all communications must go through me as the primary creative lead. She's legally prohibited from speaking in meetings like this without my explicit permission. What? Stella's voice cracks. That's not what I signed up for. It's exactly what you signed up for, I say calmly, sliding the contract across the marble table. Your signature is right there on page 12. David examines the document with growing interest. This is quite thorough. Your legal team did excellent work. Stella's face cycles through shock, rage, and dawning understanding. She tries to interrupt several times, but I calmly remind her of the legal constraints she agreed to. Each attempt makes her look more desperate, more unprofessional. Perhaps Miss Kim would be more comfortable waiting outside, David suggests diplomatically. I'm not leaving, Stella snaps, but her voice shakes with the realization that she has no power here. Security arrives within minutes of David's subtle signal. As they escort her out, Stella turns back to scream threats about our shared content and stealing her ideas. But her outburst only reinforces the executive's impression that she's unstable. The boardroom door closes with a soft click, leaving me alone with the people who can change my life. Well, David says, loosening his tie slightly, that was illuminating. Shall we discuss your solo career? For the first time in 3 years, I smile without calculation. Stella files the lawsuit on a Tuesday morning in April, exactly 18 months after signing my contract. The legal papers arrive by courier while I'm recording an episode in my new studio, and I have to pause to laugh at the irony. She's suing me for theft of intellectual property, breach of partnership agreement, and fraudulent business practices. The same accusations she made at my public humiliation, but this time, I have receipts. The musty smell of old law books fills my attorney's office as we prepare our defense. Margaret Chen, no relation despite the name, is one of the best intellectual property lawyers in the state, and her confidence radiates through every gesture. "This is going to be fun," she says, spreading Stella's complaint across her mahogany desk. "She's essentially suing you for enforcing a contract she voluntarily signed." My evidence fills 3 bankers' boxes: time-stamped recordings of our original brainstorming sessions, email threads showing her attempts to steal guests, documentation of her plagiarizing other creators, and, most damaging, proof that she's been copying my Anonymous Truths content for her own failed relaunch attempt. The beautiful thing, Margaret continues, is that her own lawsuit gives us the perfect platform to expose everything. Discovery is going to be very interesting. She's right. By suing me, Stella has opened herself up to legal scrutiny of her entire podcasting career. My team of researchers has already uncovered a pattern of idea theft going back to her college radio days. But I have a bigger weapon than just defense. "I want to go public with this," I tell Margaret. "Everything. The contracts, the recordings, the timeline of her manipulations. That's risky. It could prejudice potential jurors. It could also warn other creators about her patterns. And honestly, I think the court of public opinion needs to see who she really is." That evening, I release a special episode of Whispered Truths titled "The Truth About Stella Kim." For 45 minutes, I lay out the entire saga with legal precision and emotional honesty. Every claim is backed by evidence, every accusation supported by documentation. The response is immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, 3 other podcasters come forward with similar stories about Stella. A former radio co-host describes how Stella systematically stole her segment ideas. A YouTube creator shows how Stella copied her video format down to the thumbnail design. The hashtag #StellaSteals starts trending on Twitter. My hands tremble as I read through hundreds of supportive messages from fellow creators, industry professionals, and listeners who followed my journey. The validation is intoxicating after years of self-doubt, but the best part comes 2 days later when Margaret calls with an update. "Stella's attorney just withdrew from the case," she says, barely containing her amusement. "Apparently, he did some digging into her other business dealings and decided the ethical complications were too significant. She's representing herself?" "Looks that way. And Maya?" The judge assigned to the case is known for being particularly unsympathetic to frivolous intellectual property claims. I end the call and immediately start planning the next episode of my podcast. This time, I'll be interviewing other creators about their experiences with idea theft and the importance of protecting your work. The student has become the teacher, and Stella is about to learn a very expensive lesson. The courthouse marble echoes under my heels as I walk toward the final hearing, and I remember how these same halls used to terrify me. Today, they feel like a red carpet leading to my vindication. Judge Patricia Morrison is everything Margaret promised: sharp, no nonsense, and clearly irritated by the frivolous nature of Stella's lawsuit. She's already dismissed 3 of Stella's 5 claims during preliminary hearings. I sit at the plaintiff's table with quiet confidence, my evidence organized in neat folders, my witnesses prepared, my legal team confident. Across the aisle, Stella fidgets with a stack of papers that looks suspiciously disorganized. "Miss Kim," Judge Morrison begins, "you may present your opening statement." Stella stands shakily, clutching her notes. "Your Honor, I was Maya Chen's partner for over a year. During that time, she systematically stole my creative concepts and used them to build her career while cutting me out of the profits." Her voice wavers as she continues, painting herself as the victim of my supposed manipulation. But without her slick attorney to coach her, her story sounds exactly like what it is: a desperate lie told by someone who never expected to be held accountable. When it's my turn, I stand calmly and present the timeline. The contract she signed, the recorded conversations, the evidence of her pattern of theft from other creators. "Your Honor," I conclude, "Miss Kim isn't the victim of intellectual property theft. She's the perpetrator. This lawsuit is simply her final attempt to steal credit for work that was never hers." The next 3 hours are a masterclass in legal decimation. My witnesses testify about Stella's history of plagiarism. The audio evidence plays her own voice, describing how she planned to leverage Maya's ideas. The other creators she's victimized describe identical patterns of manipulation. Stella's desperate attempts to interrupt are quickly shut down by Judge Morrison, who seems increasingly annoyed by the waste of court time. The final blow comes when Margaret presents evidence that Stella has been secretly recording our court preparation meetings and trying to sell the recordings to gossip podcasts. This demonstrates a fundamental disregard for legal process and professional ethics, Margaret argues. Miss Kim's actions in this very courtroom prove that she cannot be trusted to honor agreements or respect boundaries. Judge Morrison's ruling is swift and brutal. Miss Kim's claims are not only without merit, they appear to be a deliberate misuse of this court's time and resources. I find in favor of the defendant on all counts, and I'm awarding damages in the amount of $75,000 to cover legal fees and reputational harm. As we leave the courthouse, Stella approaches me in the hallway. Her designer clothes can't hide the defeat in her posture, the desperation in her eyes. Maya, she whispers, grabbing my arm, we can work this out. You don't understand. I know things about you. Things that could ruin everything you've built. I look down at her manicured fingers gripping my sleeve, then back at her face. In my first life, threats like this would have terrified me, and now they just feel pathetic. Stella, I say quietly, the silence clause in our contract is still in effect. If you even think about trying to ruin me, you'll be in violation of a legal agreement that's now been validated in court. Do you really want to test that? She releases my arm like it's burned her. I walk away without looking back, leaving her standing alone in the courthouse corridor, finally understanding what it feels like to lose everything. The warm leather of my executive chair embraces me as I settle into my private recording booth 1 year after the court victory. The view from my new studio overlooks the city where Stella tried to destroy me, but now it feels more like a kingdom than a battlefield. Anonymous Truths has grown into a media empire. 3 successful podcasts, a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, and a talent management company that helps other creators protect their work. The brand that started as my secret weapon has become my greatest achievement. My phone buzzes with a notification that makes me pause. Stella has launched yet another comeback attempt, a podcast called Redemption Stories, where she interviews people who've overcome public scandals. The irony would be amusing if it wasn't so predictable. According to the analytics my team tracks, her first episode managed exactly 47 downloads. In contrast, my latest episode about empowering authentic voices hit 6 figures within the first hour. The voice message notification flashes insistently. Against my better judgment, I tap play. Maya, it's me. Stella's voice sounds hollow, defeated. I know you probably won't listen to this, but I need you to know. I'm sorry, really sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I lost the only real friend I ever had. Her voice cracks, and for a moment, I remember the girl who sat on my apartment floor talking about our dreams. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. My therapist says I have some kind of complex about not feeling good enough, so I steal other people's success to feel worthy. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but I delete the message before she can finish. Some betrayals cut too deep for therapy to heal. Some bridges burn too completely for apologies to rebuild. Stella made her choices, and I've made mine. The door to my studio opens, and my assistant Marcus pokes his head in. The Forbes interview is ready to start, he says. They're excited to discuss your company's impact on creator rights. I nod, adjusting my microphone and checking my notes. Today's interview will be broadcast to millions of people who see me as a success story, an inspiration, a woman who built something meaningful from nothing. They don't need to know about the betrayal that forged me. They don't need to understand the rage that motivated me. They just need to hear what I've learned, that your voice is your power, and no one can take it from you unless you let them. The Forbes journalist's face appears on my monitor, professional and eager. Maya, thank you so much for taking the time. I'd love to start by talking about your journey from struggling podcaster to media mogul. What drove you to create Anonymous Truths? I smile, thinking about the girl who collapsed on stage 3 years ago, broken by betrayal and public humiliation. She would never recognize the woman sitting in this chair today. I started Anonymous Truths because I believe everyone deserves to have their story heard. I begin. And more importantly, they deserve to own their story. Too many creators, especially women, have their work stolen or their voices silenced by people they trust. The interview flows naturally, and I find myself speaking not just about business strategy, but about resilience, about turning pain into purpose, about the responsibility that comes with success. As we wrap up, the journalist asks one final question. What advice would you give to creators who feel like they're not being heard? I think about Stella, still struggling to rebuild a career she destroyed through her own choices. I think about the dozens of creators who've reached out to thank me for exposing her patterns. I think about my younger self, so desperate for validation that she signed her life away. Find your authentic voice, I say, and then protect it fiercely. Don't let anyone convince you that collaboration requires giving up ownership of your dreams. And if someone betrays your trust, don't just survive it. Use it to become stronger than they ever imagined you could be. The interview ends, and I lean back in my chair, feeling the weight of everything I've built. Tomorrow, I'll record another episode, help another creator, continue expanding the empire that rose from Stella's ashes. But tonight, I'm going to celebrate the woman I've become, someone who learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you're truly capable of building. The Crystal Award feels heavier this time, substantial in a way that suggests permanence rather than fragility. The Lifetime Achievement in Ethical Podcasting trophy catches the stage lights as I stand at the same podium where Stella destroyed me 3 years ago. But tonight, the applause is mine. Every face in the audience looks up at me with genuine respect, and I can feel the difference in their energy. This isn't the desperate hunger for validation that drove my younger self. This is recognition earned through building something bigger than revenge. 3 years ago, I begin, my voice carrying clearly through the packed ballroom. I stood on a stage very much like this one, and I learned a hard truth about trust, about friendship, and about the power of owning your voice. I scanned the crowd, noting the industry professionals who once dismissed me, the executives who now compete for my attention, the creators who've thanked me for changing their lives. And there, in the back corner, working as a production assistant for the event company, I spot a familiar blonde head trying to stay invisible. Stella. Our eyes meet across the room, and I see everything I need to know in that moment of contact. The defeat, the recognition, the understanding that she chose this path when she chose betrayal over partnership. She looks away first. The podcasting industry has a responsibility, I continue, to protect authentic voices, to celebrate original content, and to ensure that creators maintain ownership of their work. When we allow idea theft to flourish, when we turn our backs on plagiarism, when we reward those who steal rather than create, we damage the very foundation of what makes this medium powerful. The audience nods along, hanging on every word. Several people pull out their phones to record quotes for social media. I want to thank everyone who believed in my voice, even when others tried to silence it. You taught me that authenticity always wins in the end, that hard work creates lasting success, and that the best revenge is building something so magnificent that your enemies become irrelevant. The applause builds to a crescendo, and I raise the award slightly in acknowledgement. As the sound washes over me, I think about the journey that brought me here, the betrayal that broke me, the rebirth that strengthened me, the empire I built from the ashes of someone else's cruelty. After the ceremony, I return to my studio for one final task. Tomorrow's episode of Whispered Truths is already written, but I want to add a personal note, a message for every creator who's ever felt stolen from, silenced, or betrayed. The recording light glows red as I lean into my microphone, the same model I've used since my struggling days, but now housed in a studio that rivals the biggest media companies. Sometimes, I say, my voice warm with hard-earned wisdom, someone will try to steal your voice. They'll take your ideas, claim your work, convince the world that your creativity belongs to them. In those moments, you have two choices. Let them silence you or find your voice again. Stronger, clearer, and impossible to ignore. I pause, thinking about the woman I was and the woman I've become. If you choose the second path, remember this. Authenticity always wins. Truth always surfaces. And when you rebuild from betrayal, you don't just get your voice back. You discover exactly how powerful it can be when you refuse to let anyone take it from you twice. I end the recording and sit in the quiet of my studio, surrounded by the empire. I built one authentic story at a time. Tomorrow, I'll help another creator protect their work. Next week, I'll sign another partnership that empowers voices instead of exploiting them. But tonight, I'm simply grateful to be the woman who survived betrayal and transformed it into purpose. The girl who collapsed on that stage 3 years ago could never have imagined this moment, but she didn't need to. She just needed to survive long enough to become someone strong enough to seize her second chance. And that, I realize as I turn off the studio lights and head home to my life, is perhaps the most powerful truth of all. Sometimes you have to lose your voice to find it again. And when you do, make sure no one can take it from you twice.